For the first week or two, I'd like to have the student's desk facing the front of the classroom. That way I have a chance to start learning students' faces, and students can be trained to come in and check the front board for any announcements, assignments, or warm-ups that they have that day. Afterwards, I'd like to arrange the desk in groups of 4s. That way I can be a big fan of group work, especially in math, and I like to phrase that my supervisor gave me earlier in the semester that summarized Vygotsky nicely, telling me that students need to learn the soft skills of group work, such as interpersonal communication, taking ownership and responsibility of a task, and teamwork. Now, in regards to having a teacher desk, I definitely would like one, somewhere where I keep notes and various other things that students might need throughout the semester. I know that I'd want it to be off to the side of the room, but I'm not sure if I'd want it in front or in the back of the room, but I don't think that's as important as making sure that I don't use it as a place to hide behind. I use it as a place where students can come and create a safe space for them within the classroom. Speaking of which, I also would like to find a real zany, colorful poster that I could stick up in one of the corners of the room. That way it's representative of my personality, it shows math as being a fun and engaging idea for students, and it also is not as distracting as it could be. I would also want to find things that relate math with music, because that is a passion of mine, and I also feel like it starts to answer the question of when I use math in other areas of my life. One other thing that I'd want to do is make sure that I leave a part of the board on the side of the classroom for students' work, so that way it's, again, not in the front so it's a distraction, but it's definitely somewhere where students can visibly see it and easily see it as well. At the beginning of class, I will have about 2 to 3 warm-up problems based on either homework or the previous lesson, which I guess is similar. Now, students will be given about 5 minutes through the use of a timer to work on that on a sheet of lined paper. This will be modeled during the first couple days of class, utilizing questions where I can get an idea of where students are at as far as their math level is concerned. And what I would do is I would also use that as a way of determining rewards and consequences, because if they're working well for 5 minutes and need an extra minute or two, I would gladly give it to them. But if they're being rowdy and disruptive, when the 5 minutes are up, I would say, I'm sorry, you wasted your time, and this is the consequence. You have to turn in what you've done. As far as closing class, what I like to do is I like to have group work be my last activity of the class, then call students back together for the last 2 to 3 minutes, use that as a time to get feedback from students, reflect on ideas, kind of double down on what we've been talking about during the day, and even kind of go over some homework that's going to be assigned. With rules and behaviors, I definitely expect that I will have to go over school-wide policy as part of a mandatory assignment, but the one thing that I really want to communicate to my students is respect. And I don't just mean respect for myself. Even more important than that would be respect for one another and respect for themselves. Now, after that, what I would like to do is take 2 days or so to discuss possible rules that students would like to see, and that way to allow them to have an incorporate in, or have a stake in the game, as it were. Now, what I would do once we agree, once majority agrees on all of the rules, because it's impossible for everybody to agree on the rules, is to go ahead and print them out, have them on the board, and also send a copy home with parents. Likewise, I would also like to do that with some of the consequences. Now, I know that there will be consequences that I must enforce, where I have to go ahead and write students' names on the board, so that way I remember and hold myself and the students accountable for taking away participation points. Now, if they are repeat offenders, I will unfortunately have to make phone calls home, but I would like to have that be a more positive experience than negative, so I would like to phrase that less in the way of your students causing trouble and more in how can I partner with you to make sure that your child is having the best experience possible in the classroom. Unfortunately, if behavioral problems continue, I would have to resort to referrals and detention and things like that, and I really am not a big fan of those things, but I am aware that they are tools that I may need to use. Let's see. And to develop classroom community, one of the few things that I want to do at the beginning of the school year is hand out 3x5 cards where students write their name on one side, and then on the other side they write some stuff about them, whether that be favorite hobby or favorite food. I would probably ask them a ridiculous question like, hey, if you could have a superpower, what would that be? And then I would also want them to tell me what they feel about their math abilities or how they feel they are doing in the classroom. And then I would have them give that back to me so that way I have an idea of who each individual school student is. And then I'm also able to use those as calling cards throughout the semester when I want participation from students. However, in order to get the students to bond with each other, what I would do as an additional closer is I would read off parts of the card I would omit the part about how they feel about math because I feel that's a little too vulnerable, but then I would have other students try to guess which student that is. That way they can be learning more about their classmates.